Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to askNK. Today we're taking a look at ActorCore, which is the world's premium selection of 3D characters and motions. And today we're going to take a look at how you can retarget your ActorCore motions from the motion library over to a 3D model. It's also worth mentioning that they have a couple of other assets that you can take a look at just in case you like to get this. And the same thing applies to motions. If you need some very free motions you can play with, you can practice with, you can see there's a couple of motions you can get from here. And there's just a couple of free contents that you might want. One of the things that makes Revolution stand out is, contrary to other vendors or contrary to other motion platforms, all of the motions you'll be getting are not just full body, but they also come with finger motions. And that is just one of the things that makes it stand out of the crowd. And today we're going to see how you can retarget a motion from Revolution ActorCore over to a 3D model that you already have. So with that said, we're going to dive directly into Maya, which is our tool of choice for today, and see how this actually works. And with Maya simply opened right here, what we need to do is click and drag the motion that we've already downloaded. So the motion we downloaded is a female dance, which is looking pretty. If we go in and press the playback button, you can see we have that cool dance, really nice. Now, how do you retarget this to a 3D model? Now, you can go over to the internet, download any 3D model that you want, but one thing is for sure, that the models you have to retarget these to, they need to be characterized to match the joints that you have here. So the very example which we're going to look at is how you can fix this so that you don't get these sort of issues, because I do know lots of you guys had complained about this before. This is the kind of issues you probably get once you do your motion capture and you try to retarget this. And this goes for lots of motion captures out there. And how can you fix this? And also, how can you retarget this properly and get even way cleaner results? So to get this going, we already have some assets loaded with Maya. So we're just going to go ahead and use that. We'll go over to Windows, go all the way down to Content Browser. And if you go to Animation, down to Rigs, you would notice that we have a couple of rig assets. So I'm just going to click, drag and drop one right in there, and you can see the asset that we have looking pretty. And this isn't bad. I'm just going to select the control because this has been characterized already. So I'm just going to select the control and move this right over there. Now, how do you characterize objects? How you can characterize a 3D model is very simple. Make sure that you define the joints properly, and make sure the motion you're also trying to retarget to the character have the same characterization definition for the joints. That is very necessary. In this case, we already have a character that has a very good joint definition, and you can see what we have here with the control rig. So we have all of this looking nice. Now, the question is, how do you characterize this one? How you can characterize this is very simple, okay? Simply switch this from character to none, because this is for this model. So switch it to none, which gives you the option to characterize it. Now, for those who don't have the human IK window, how you can get the human IK window is simple. Go over to the Windows section of Maya, go all the way down to Animation Editors, and you can notice that you have the human IK right there. So if we click and drag that, we can simply dock that right there, looking good. Next thing, switch this from this character, because we don't want to deal with this character anymore, and go over to none. And once we go to none, we need to define this joint so that it looks exactly like what we want. We want this joint to match with this one so we can seamlessly transfer the motion. And to do that, click on Create Character Definition, because we already have the rig here. So create character definition, and you notice that you have all of this. And to define this joint is simple, because Maya handles the joint naming and definition in a very intuitive way. So you just need to define one part, and you notice that you see it on the other side. Lovely. So to do the same thing, simply double click on the joint, select the next joint, and that's simple. Double click on this joint and select the next joint, and that's simple. And you notice automatically it mirrors. We need to select the root, which is the reference node. Double click on that, select this joint, and that's simple. So what we're going to do is define this for the rest of the joints. All right, so now that we have this defined, you would notice that, we have a couple of greens and yellows. That's fine. If you have something like this, it's okay. It only specifies that the rotation of this arm and these ones are not to, the default rotation. Like if you look at the model that we have here, this is at the default rotation, which is at the T-pose, and that's perfect. Now, the next set of things you might need to define, in this case, since ActorCore comes with fingers, and this rig here has fingers, the next things you need to do is to define the fingers. This is a little bit tricky, and it's tricky in the sense that the viewport actually changes when you select something. It simply shows you the mirrored part, and that isn't something you should worry about. So if you click on this drop down, and you double click on this button, you can go over and define the right thumb or the base of the right thumb. And you notice it shows you the left one. So you just need to go back and click on this button one more time and do the same thing, and you repeat this for the rest of the entire fingers. All right, so now that we have this, your motion retargeting is almost done. So the next thing you need to do is click on this lock button to lock this character definition for this one, and then you need to switch the characters. So in this case, we would like this to be the source motion of this model. So what we need to do is click on the drop down and go over to the character, and then simply select the source and change this from control read to the character 1, which is definitely this character that we've just defined. So once you have that, you would notice the retargeting is happening, but you would actually experience some weird movement. And that weird movement you experience is this, that every other thing from the leg all the way to the torso is working perfectly fine, but the hands are just everywhere. And now this is one problem lots of people have. And how to fix this is very simple. Switch the source back to the control read, which actually positions the character back to where it was in the beginning, and you can simply move back to the character that you've already created, go to the definition, and unlock this definition. You have to unlock this definition before you make some changes, and the changes we want to make is setting this motion in T-pose first. Now you see the problem we have is because this is not in T-pose and this is in T-pose, your 3D software will probably not be able to actually know where to position this in space. And so the best thing to do is make sure that you have this opened, go all the way to your time range and set this to a good number like -4, and the start number should be -4 as well. So once you have that ready, we can go in and move this all the way to that point. And if I crunch this all the way down and select any joint, you would notice we don't have keyframes right here. So what to do? Go in, select this joint, which is the joint for our rotation now. Go over to your channel box and then set this to 0. And once you set it to 0, you can simply add a keyframe. But instead of keyframing this like setting key every time, let's turn on the auto key. So once we have the auto key turned on, so we can now proceed to select this other one and position this about a good point. So that should be -90, and we can get that there, and that applies to this other one. Have that selected, set this to 0, and we can also set this to just 90. So that looks pretty nice. So we're looking at this in the T-pose. Now, if you also want to make sure that these parts, the fall in line, you can also do the very same thing. And for this, I think we can set that to 0. And for these other one, let's make sure that we're looking at it properly. We can also set this to 0. All right, so we have these two set to 0. And I think we can do the very same thing for these ones as well. Select 1, 2, tap 0, fix that. Do the same thing here. Select 1, 2, we have that done already. Let's reconfirm that. And we can also do the very same thing on this one. It's always worth it that you look at your models from different points every single time you're working with them. So once we have this tool ready, let's also make sure that we have some good rotations. I think we have some very weird rotations happening there. So what we can do as well, let's see if we can lock these ones down to 0. That looks pretty nice. Select these other ones, and I think that also applies to that. Okay, that looks good. Now the next thing you need to fix is the foot. So within the foot, if you select this, you don't need to select all of this. The reason why we're selecting this one after the other is, in this case, if you select all of them and press 0, this is what you get. You don't want to get that. You want to make sure that you're meticulously getting the right position in a rotation that you need. So what we need to do is grab that, select this, set this to, I think 180 should fix it. That should be nice. Set that to 0. And we're also going to do the very same thing here. Let's make sure we have this one locked in place, and we are looking at the rotation, and this rotation is going to be that much. And these other rotation, let's see, where do we need to make that change? I guess that should be within the x-axis. So I'm just going to also set that. That's a bit too much, so we can position this here. What values do we have here? That's a value of 11. So we're just going to set this to -11, and that's the same thing that we're going to do here. So now that we have all the joints done, the next thing which you need to do is simply go over to the human IK. And now you notice that we have a couple of these all turned green. Now, this isn't like a problem. Like if you have something like this, that shouldn't bother you because, you have most of the definitions done. The next thing you need to do is click on this button to lock it. Now, once you do that, what it tells Maya is this is the new stance pose. So it takes this as the new origin pose. And then if you switch over, and change the character to this character and change the source to our motion, you can now see that this automatically stays here. So what this means is we can set this all the way back to 0 and set this all the way back to 0. And right now, if we press the playback button, you can now see that our motion is applied properly to the character. So let's go ahead and turn on the textures and also select this joint, go over here and hide it. Okay, so once you have this ready and you press the playback button, you can now see that we have our proper motion playing back as it is supposed. So this is more like it. For those who like to see this in Blender, 3D Studio Max, or maybe Motion Builder, you can simply comment that and we'll plan a video for you guys. And of course, for those looking for high quality motion capture data files that they can use for their animation, for the games and so much more, you can simply consider checking out Revolution's ActorCore, where you can find a truckload of 3D motions that you can use for your projects. So tell me what you guys think about this one in the comment section. And of course, if you like this video or you like something from this, you can go ahead and give a like and don't forget to share with a friend. And until I see you guys in the next one, peace.